Hello and greetings, everyone. Welcome to my stream where currently nothing is going out. Well, this is troubling. Oh, what? Not entirely true. I can hear myself over on Twitch. And now I can hear myself on YouTube. What strangeness. Anyway, as long as things are working, as long as people can see me. Except that over on Twitch, they can't see me. What's going on? What madness? What strangeness? What the hoo-ha hey? I do not understand what's going on here. Well, we'll tackle this in a moment. So first up, hello to Adam Leisman and Cherry Fluffbelly Official, Pokemon Fire Eevee, and my good bud Trinary. Enter pup so we can keep track of how often I say, let's see here. Gaiety, Meta Runner, Cosmona Inspira, Elizabeth Snowbell, and Soderfan 15. And hello, Hybrid Custode. Also, Cage Black 1443, Country Shape Media. And Venpie. But nothing over on Twitch. What a strange... Usually it's YouTube giving me grief. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now it's going. I'm being paranoid because I've been through some changes recently. One of them being that well, basically, my Mac forced me to run an update. I don't like having to run an update. It makes me very sad. Because once you start a new OS with Mac, there's always the question of, will your old program still run on it? And already I had some trouble with Streamlabs. Every time I tried to update the text where it says, make the donut, the bigger make the donut, it didn't work. It crashed. What you're seeing right there at the very bottom of the stream is actually an image that I made in Illustrator. Also, there are some more people who joined, like Infinite Warlock and Chris. Hello, Chris. It's good to see you. And yes, Enderpup, it is Make the Donut. I will explain the strangeness of this in due time. In due time. First off, Adam Leisman, I'm sorry that things could be better. I'm glad that you're doing all right, but I hope that things will improve swiftly and surely. Cosmona Inspira wants to know where I've been the last couple of weeks. Well, where to begin? The last week in May and the first week in June were a convergence of events. A friend of mine had to have surgery on her finger because there was such terrible swelling and pain, a total immobilizing the use of her finger. This was the second time they had to operate on it, which was not fun. So I was both on Memorial Day. She drives for Uber, so I helped her drop off her car at the only place where you could on a national holiday. That would be the airport car return. So I picked her up, drove her back. We had some lunch, and then I joined my family. Next day, I dropped her off early in the morning for the surgery. And the day after that, I drove her home. At which time, I took possession of another friend's dog, Ruby, who is abso-frickin-lutely adorable. She was my guest for over a week as I worked to get ready for Whinny City. And while I was kind of glad I could return her the day before I had to take her home, I dropped her off the day before I left for the convention. I really miss her now. I had a lot of fun with the Ruby-Doo. So let me see if I can pull up a picture of her. Whoop, pardon me one sec. Open this. There we go. This is Ruby. She is part Schnauzer, part corgi. And all I needed was to look down while I was working. She'd be under my desk looking at me with those eyes. How can you ignore those eyes? There's puppy eyes, and then there's whatever this is. And this is all powerful. So just looking through. Oh, welcome, MLP Solar Dash. Yep. Oh, Advent Nebula. Ruby's actual papa is in the chat. Ruby is a Dotson Corgi. And, well, she was a joy. She was a wonderfully behaved dog. And it was fun to have her there. So I'm hoping, Advent, if you ever need a dog sitter again, let me know. So after that, I'm off and away to Whinny City, which featured a 2:30. I went to bed at 2:30 a.m. trying to get everything ready and put together. And then I left from my flight at 5 a.m. for a 7:30 departure. And you know what's really eerie? Everything went smoothly. Usually asked by security to open up my luggage because I've got a lot of metal in it, all the merchandise pins and buttons and keychains. Well, not so this time, mostly because I reduced the number of stuff I brought to Whinny City. Just realized taking the whole bag was pretty pointless when really smaller containers would suit me better. And I think that worked better with the machines. I got to the gate just as boarding started. I got on the plane and promptly zonked out for the 2-hour flight and arrived in Chicago, where I spent most of the day just exploring. Well, not Chicago, but went to Schaumburg. Went exploring, checked out some shops, and eventually had dinner with some friends. And we set up my booth and began the convention, which was quite wonderful. It was great to connect with people. It was great to present and be a part of a variety of panels. And, well, I can go into detail as we work, but all that was a fun time. But the trade-off is I haven't been very active online in this period, other than my weekday puns, which I try to stay on top of. What drove me a little bonkers is when I got home, I saw that there was a new mini-series of IDW Gen 5. And I practically threw my hands up in defeat there. They've got 3 mini-series going at once. I cannot cover 3 mini-series with videos at the same time. But I also know that when I just make a blog post, I'm neglecting my YouTube channel. So it's all very frustrating. So I'm working to pass the baton on Equestria Daily to someone to handle the blogging and reviewing of the comics and have some good candidates. I'll be talking to one in particular just a little bit. The first one is ending this upcoming Wednesday, says Q. Well, also greetings to the illustrious Q. But then I suspect that they'll add yet another miniseries to fill the gap because IDW is crazy. Abso-freaking-lutely crazy. So, having done a very brief recap of all the events, and my gosh, there were a lot of events. Oh, I forgot to mention, I was also requested at dinner with my family because I got to meet my brother's girlfriend's aunt and uncle. And that was a fun time. That was a good gathering. But it's also kind of funny. I just don't understand why all these events converged on just 2 weeks. There's a whole lot of time in May and June, but no, they had to concentrate on just those 2 weeks. And to be honest, I had a hard time looking beyond this past weekend. So now I'm here in what was the future. And I'm just like, well, I'm just trying to reorient myself, which brings us to tonight's stream. Boop. We're not going to be worrying about Illustrator for a little while. Instead, this is my new updated desktop, even though I didn't make much choice. We are working with a totally new program this evening, which There you go. Don't vex me now. This, my friends, is Blender, a basic 3D program, open source coded. And, well, here's the thing. One of the things I most enjoy about going to conventions is that I get to speak with the other vendors, especially folks like Sky of Sky Railroad and Igor of My Little Ties and Vivid View and View of View's Art. And one suggestion Igor had was that I should really look into the option of 3D printing, as that's become much more affordable. And also, if I wanted to do 3D printing, I needed to learn Blender. At which point, View chuckled quite wickedly. I mean, quite wicked. This is the stuff like the Joker knows that there's a bomb under your feet and you've started tap dancing. That's the kind of chuckle this felt like. Apparently, here's the conflict around Blender. It's free and open source coded, which means anyone can make changes or improvements to the programming. Programmers designed it. Artists use it. The artists are often frustrated by the interface, but the programmers become defensive and say, well, if you don't like it, change it. Problem is, artists don't necessarily understand programming, and programmers don't always understand user interface. Ergo, Blender can be a very useful tool, but it's also very confusing. And one of the earliest tests, one of the first things that people apparently do, and this is what Igor told me to do, is make the donut. You are supposed to create a 3D donut, icing and sprinkles and all, and that is your first foray. And if you're still sane by the end, you might have a future with Blender. Or, very possible, you might get so frustrated, you're like, okay, I'm just going to spend the rest of my days commissioning someone else to deal with this nonsense. So I especially loved one of the earlier comments, forbidden 3D donut. And Infinite Warlord points out that people get crazy over Marvel and DC, and that's true. But Marvel and DC, as far as I know, aren't releasing 3 concurrent miniseries on just one topic, even Spider-Man. Although, funny enough, they are making Ultimate Spider-Man and regular Spider-Man, so who knows? But it can be hard to keep up with the whole shebang. If it were one comic a month, I could do video reviews quite comfortably, or at least semi-punctually. But no, they are really gunning for everything. When was I ever sane? Asked Mary Drink. That is a fair question for which I have no answer. Trinair wonders, how do you translate Homer's donut? Well, you kind of got to go. Welcome to my stream where we ask the really important questions. And yeah, Trinary, it would be smarter if I just did a video review once the series was done. But I started on issues and, well, I've been dealing with the concept that I've put too much energy in too many places concurrently. And in doing so, I don't really get a lot done. I write comic reviews for Equestria Daily, but those comic reviews do not create a video. I create videos on the comics for both Equestria Daily and YouTube, but they aren't my usual after-the-fact flair. And I make Pinkie Pie Says Goodnight comics. This past week, I made a big comic with a lot of visuals. You all saw me working on the Spectre characters during one live stream. And that took, I had quite the headache the next day and general fatigue. So I'm like, well, that's a whole other kettle of fish. So spread too far, spread too thin. I must consolidate. Hence, the consideration of, I like to say passing the baton. I'm not retiring or giving up. I'm just asking someone else to take the reins, and then we'll see what I figure out. All right. Now, here's the thing. To make the donut, I have no idea what to do. This is literally what I get when I open Blender. It's a cube. And I've learned a few things. I've learned that I can select the cube. I can unselect the cube. I can move the cube with the move tool. So along the X, and I assume this is the Y, and this is the Z. I can, well, let's see here. Oh, I said it. I can rotate it. Whee! I can spin it. I can revolve it. Ah, yes. Thank you, internal thesaurus. Or I can scale it. Now it's a rectangle. Now it's a square again. Now it's more of a cube. There we go. But, oh my goodness, and not, is there no undo? Yeah, undo. But none of that turns it into anything remotely resembling a donut. And if, rather than flail about with all these menu options up top, then all these features down here and these sets of tools over here, I needs me a teacher. Thank you, Trinary. I appreciate the support. And so what I needs is to pull up a video. And we're going to switch over to my Blender setup stream, where I will listen to the tutorial of one Blender guru, a person with 2.94 million subscribers. So I'm pretty sure people trust these tutorials, especially as the tutorial for complete beginners, hey, that's me, has over 3.1 million views. Blender tutorial for complete beginners part 1. And I've skipped ahead to interface. So let us see what the guru has in store for us.
Starters, this view, this window right here, is your 3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 90% of your time because it is the 3D world. So you can see that we have 3 objects here. We've got a camera, we've got a cube, and we've got a lamp.
Okay, so right off the bat, light source, camera. See, I've learned something new already. So I guess this makes the camera zoom in, zoom out. In and out. Woo. Okay, but that's more if I were like developing a 3D scene. Cosmic Inspira. Yes, a Borg cube might be easier to do than a donut, at least. But who knows? Let's just find out.
And when we click on it, you can see it's selected because it has the yellow outline. So let's delete the default cube, of course, and replace it with something else.
Heavens.
So we could do that by going up to the Add menu up here, or by remembering the hotkey, which is Shift A. So
I'm going to go with the menu real quick. I'm not there yet. I'm in the scripting. Add. Add mesh curve. Like a circle? Let's see what he has to say.
So Shift A for add. So usually the one you're looking for is underneath mesh. So these are called your primitives, and it's what you use to start something when you're looking to make an object. Like,
oh, you're looking to start something, are you? Well, here you go. Also, good evening, Zapstride.
if you're going to make a chair, you might start with a cylinder as the chair leg and then build out from there. But the one I'm sure you're all very curious, you want to click it, it's the monkey. So let's just click.
Can I say this on a stream? Click the monkey? Monkey! What in heaven's name is that? This is supposed to be a monkey? What? Okay, kind of seeing it now. Ah, there's the face. Behold, the face of madness. Heavens to Betsy, I'm tackling stuff I didn't even know existed.
The monkey. Why does Blender have a monkey? Well, fun fact, every 3D software has its own little random complex object because it's useful to test things like shaders or complexities of scenes. So 3ds Max has the Utah teapot, Houdini has the toy, and I think pig's head. Blender has the monkey, and it's actually called the Suzanne monkey head, which you can see in the top left there, named after the orangutan from the film Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. Random piece of trivia. So,
I'm learning so much already. But, I got to say, I think Houdini, as much as I appreciated reference to Jay and Silent Bob, I think Houdini had the best random object. I mean, look at that thing. That thing's adorable. It's so cute.
The top left there, named after trivia. So let's get a better look at it. And to that, we need to orbit, which you can do by on your mouse there, your scroll wheel. That is called your middle mouse button. If you push that in and then drag around, that is now orbiting.
Oh,
now, for my laptop users, you've just panicked because you realize you don't have a mouse. How are you going to orbit around? First of all, probably a good idea to get a mouse for 3D work. It will come in handy. But in a pinch, you can get by without it just by up here in the top right-hand corner, this little gray circle, anywhere in the gray section. If you just left-click, drag on that, that will do the exact same thing. Or if you want, you can go to Edit Preferences, and then underneath Input, there's Emulate 3-button mouse. And that means that if you hold down Alt and then left-click, drag, that will do the exact same thing. Also, whilst you are in user preference.
I like how thorough this fellow is. I would like to take this time to once again thank MLP Trinary and Sweetie Bloom for the Christmas gift of a, what would it be? A remote mouse. Just plug a little USB adapter into my keyboard and it serves as a mouse, giving me not only the left and right buttons back, but also a scroll wheel. So this is much easier for me than it would have been if I were still using the default Mac mouse, which is basically a bar of soap. So I'm grateful for my friends who give me very useful and very forward-thinking gifts.
You might want to go to Interface, and you've got Resolution Scale. If you're on a 4K monitor, you might find that your menus and buttons are really small and you kind of have to like squint in to see it. So personally, I like to keep my 4K monitor around about 1.5. But since this is a tutorial, I'll make it nice and big so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so that's orbiting around with the middle mouse button. If we want to zoom in, we can do that just by scrolling in and out. We could also do it by going up to the magnifying glass tool there and then just left-click, dragging, and then moving the mouse back and forth. That does the same thing. Or you could hold down Control and then middle mouse button, and that will do a smooth zoom as well. Okay, so one thing you might notice looking at this is that it's not very pretty, right? It's just kind of got this flat, bland, gray lighting over it.
Hey, don't be mean to the monkey. The monkey has done nothing to you. Also, hello, Noah Harris, and I forgot to say hello to Nightfall Gloam YouTube. And Cage Black. No, I said hi to Cage Black earlier. Okay, that's good.
Everything. And that's because this state right now is called viewport shading. And it's kind of a lightweight, optimized way to view the scene just as you're building it. But if you want to create a final pretty image, that's called rendering. And you can actually switch into rendered mode by going up here into the top right-hand corner. You can see we're currently in the viewport shading mode. If we go 2 across, you should see rendered view mode. So if we click that, your computer might stall for a quick second whilst it loads it in. but you can see it's now different. We have directional light. We have shadow cast across the monkey. So it's now currently being lit by this lamp up here. So if I wanted to, zoom in on that lamp there and just kind of like move it around, you can see it's kind of hard to focus on. Like it's always exactly not in the right view. And that's because we are centered on our monkey right now. We need to change the focus. We need to pan to something else. So we could do that one of two ways. One, if you're on.
Okay, I did not expect tonight to go with we are centered on our monkey. Can I just say, of all the things I have heard in this day and age, we are centered on our monkey is not one I expect. So I'm kind of now thinking, I think you're right, Trinary. Oh, sorry, Commodore Steele saying that no Saiyans are watching. But then they'd just be mad at Frieza, who's really racist. Or is it speciesist? Either way, total jerk.
On a laptop, you could use the little move tool there. That will do that. Or everyone, especially most people in Blender, prefer to use the hotkeys. So we just keep it in the default selection state here. And instead, remember the hotkey, which is G for grab. Now, I've just tapped the key, and you'll notice as I move my cursor that it's now attached to my cursor. My cursor isn't even actually close to it. In fact, my cursor could be on the other side of the screen, and I could tap G, and it will move it. And at first, this is kind of awkward. You're like, why is it working this way? But once you get used to it, you realize it's actually handy because you don't have to spend all this time like navigating your cursor to something just so that you can move it. Your cursor could be over here, and then just tap it, and you're moving it. So whilst you're in this move state, if you want to cancel a movement, you could do it one of two ways. You could just hit escape, or you could right click. Then if you want to confirm a movement, like say I want to move my lamp here and I like the movement, I could just do a single left click. So again, if I want to cancel something, just right click. If I want to confirm the movement, left click. But let's say I wanted to move it along an axis. Like, I like these arrows here and I want to be able to move it on just a specific axis. Well, I can do that whilst I'm in that grab state as well. So after I have hit the G key to grab it, I can then tap the letter of the axis that I want to move it on. So if you don't know, in the real world and in the 3D software, there are 3 axes because there's 3 dimensions. There's the X axis, which I can move it by hitting the X key, the Y axis to move it back and forth along the Y axis with the Y key, or the Z axis to move it up and down on the Z axis. So you can remember those.
Oh yeah, for some reason, Britain and Australia and thereabouts, they prefer to use the term Z, which I guess is where we got the Power Rangers villain's name, Lord. Okay, so I'm moving it on the Z-axis. That's good to know. Now let's change it to the X-axis. Over here, over here, over here. I think this looks kind of cool. And the Y-axis. Oh, yeah, that looks kind of cool. Look at the monkey. Do you want to kiss it?
Those letters, the X, Y, and Z. Or the method that I actually prefer to use is whilst you're in that G state, if you just hold down the middle mouse button and then pull out, you can see you get this like gray line that pulls out from the center. And then if you just drag out and move around, it will snap it to the nearest axis, which again is maybe an odd way to work, but it's actually really handy because it means you don't have to think of the letter and locate it on your keyboard. I can just tap G to move it and then middle mouse drag out and then just find that exact axis that I'm looking for. And so it's very fast to just quickly move the lamp exactly where I want it. By the way, if you're finding it hard to remember all of the keyboard shortcuts that I've mentioned, I've actually put together a PDF, a cheat sheet of Blender's most common hotkeys, and you can download that by clicking the link in the description. So you could print it out or you could just have it on a separate monitor while you work. Also, if you are from another 3D software package, you might notice that Blender's hotkeys are different than what you are used to. So if you actually go to Preferences, just for those people that are from other softwares, if you change the key map to industry compatible, you'll find that these shortcuts are probably more in line with what you remember from other software. I'll also put a link to a cheat sheet that is just for the industry compatible key maps that somebody else put together. I've got nothing to do with it, but I'll put that link there so you can check it out as well. For the rest of this tutorial series, I'm going to use Blender's hotkeys. Just keep that in mind. Now let's say as I am moving around here, I'm like, oh, this looks really good. I've got some nice Rembrandt lighting across the monkey's face. I want to take a photo. I want to take a nice pretty image of this and post it on socials for clout, right?
I am fascinated about what he's doing and describing, but I'm also worried about adding a cone. Okay. Adding something. Why not? Let's cone the monkey. Good Lord. I feel like I'm not mature enough for this because everything makes me want to giggle like a frat boy. Okay, so click, hit G. No, click on it, hit G. Bring it over here. Now it's below. So click, hit G. Bring it up above. Right there. Let's just keep it there for the moment. I'm thinking of Andros from Star Fox. Gaiety, the Power Rangers at the first... You know what? Let's get a little music going too, because I could see this becoming just a little boring. Let's see here. Head bopping, chill. I need some chill music. Wait, this sounds more like horror. How's this sounding? Too loud? Too quiet? I'm going to try not to talk while the tutorial is playing, but just need to hear. Okay. So, as much as I would like to know about making a render and all that, we'll tackle that later on. Moving the camera, I'm assuming, will be much the same as moving the light source. But changing the material might be interesting. Turn it down just a little, say. As loud as my voice, my God. Well, that's too low. That's so quiet it doesn't even make a sound. Okay, hopefully right around there my voice is still dominant, but you can hear it a little bit. I guess I have my own monitors turned up too high. All right, now it's subtle. Well, goodness knows subtlety ain't usually my thing. Come on now, other YouTube clip.
This is Blender,
Yes,
open source 3D software that can... But this is too simple. If we post this on the internet, people are bound to make fun of us. Imagine that.
I'm a brony. You think I don't get made fun of on the internet just willy-nilly?
Well, we could give it some color, right? So with our monkey head selected, we can go over to here to the properties. So this properties section is where you might spend the other, I don't know, another 8 5 to 8%. I don't know, getting too exact there. You might spend another 5% of your time in this section, but it's where all of the properties for things are in Blender. So for example, you've got like the render properties, like the size of the image that you're saving something as is defined there. And some of these properties will stay here no matter what is selected, but others are selection dependent. So you can see actually if I click the camera there, you can see I get a little camera tab at the bottom there.
All right. Quick hello to Peppermint Presents who joined us. Welcome. And Nathan Duazo, you're not late. You're exactly when you need to be here, which is whenever's convenient for you.
If I select my monkey, you'll see the camera tab disappears, but instead I have some other ones that appear. So one that we might want to change is underneath material, and this will enable us to add a material, change the color to something else, essentially. So underneath here where it's got new, I'm just going to hit new. And then you've got a bunch of options, very confusing. Ooh, IOR, subsurface. Again, don't worry about it. We'll get to all of that later on. The one that defines the color is the base color. So if I do a single left click on...
Okay, so I'm trying to go slow here as best I am able. There we go. Well, now I don't hear the music at all. What happened? Oh, it ended. That's why. Okay. There we go. I will make the blue monkey. It's the blue monkey group.
On that white box there, I can then change this color to whatever I want. I could make it an odd, creepy, skin-toned monkey head, right? Like that. And do a render. Okay, so hey, all right, it's better, but still it's too simple. I think people will think we haven't put enough effort into this masterpiece. So let's add another object. Let's give the monkey a hat. So if we want to add another object, how do we do it? Well, we could go to the add menu, like I mentioned before, or the hotkey Shift A. So what sort of hat do we want to add? We could do a boxy hat. Let's do a party hat with a cone. So once we've added that object, you can see it's just plopped it straight in the center, intersecting our monkey. So we need to move it. We can move it and we could grab it with the G key. So it's now moving it just on our cursor there. I don't want to move it just freehand though, because I like the position, but I just want to move it up. So I'm going to hit Z to move it along the Z axis. Right, I like it there. So once I like the placement, I'm just going to do a single left click. Okay, great. But too big. See, we need to learn another tool, which is scale. So we could go to the scale tool there, and then we get this familiar little scale axes tool there. But again, most people prefer to remember the hotkey, which for scale is just S. So S to scale. So resizing that, okay, that's pretty good. Let's move it down again, so G and Z. Okay.
All right. I command that we take just a moment.
All right, but yeah, let's say we want to...
Also, I'm already falling into bad habits. On Illustrator, if I hold down the spacebar and click, I can move things around like the hand tool. But that's not the case here. See, it's all about remembering what button does what. There we are. That's what I needed. Nope. I need the whole blessed shindig. Nope, that's just scaling it. There we are. See, I learned something that wasn't expressly stated, probably was said before I skipped ahead. Lesson of the story is I should probably learn this a bit more. I should probably watch the whole tutorial. But let's move it just a little bit back, rest it on the top of the monkey's head. There we go. A party hat or dunce cat monkey. My favorite monkey character, Cosmin Inspira. Oh, there are so many to choose from, of all things. I'm going to say Etamon from Digimon. He's pretty wild, but he made for an entertaining villain. And it's also kind of comical that this the dub gave him an Elvis voice. Oh, you're right, Zlurb. Mojo Jojo is also even funnier. Okay, Edamon came first, so I guess that's why I think of him. But yeah, Mojo Jojo is really good. Oh, so good. And yes, people point out Optimus Primal. Although, I mean, he's a monkey, yes, but is he... But he's a transformer. Is that cheating? Well, I don't care. I won't tell. I really didn't think I'd be thinking this hard about monkeys. Oh, the things we're doing tonight. Let's keep going.
Make it a little taller, okay? So we could scale it along just the Z-axis. So S and then Z, whoops, S, Z, there we go. And it's now making it a tall party hat. Scale it down. There we go. Ha, look at that. Be a very bland party if it's gray though. So let's give it another material. An exciting color, a vibrant aqua color. Why not? Give that a render by hitting F12. Okay. Camera is in the wrong position, so let's go to camera view mode with number pad 0. I'm going to select my camera, and rather than dabbling with that little thing I had before, I'm going to hit G and then middle mouse, just tap it once. As I said, it's a little awkward, Blender's the way it handles with the camera, but anyway, just move that out, and then I got to rotate it down. All right, so I'm going to rotate, so with the camera selected, tap R.
Boy, he's tackling a lot. Okay, materials, new. Let's make this, well, a red, no red hat. Makes me think of MAGA. Let's go with green, orange, kind of goldish. Yeah, I'll go with goldish. No, Starbreaker 12, Goku and Vegeta are not monkeys, but Frieza would have you believe such. I gotta say, as an introduction, this is actually pretty fun.
Then middle mouse, and it's now kind of like freehand rotating around. So I'll just move it up slightly. There we go. Okay. This is just a fool around session, so don't worry if you're making mistakes. We'll get to actual practical building stuff in the next part. I'm just trying to find ways to throw in these like fundamental tools. Rotate, right? The monkey's head is just, he needs to look dead on at the camera, and currently he's off. What an excuse to use the rotate tool. So you could enable the rotate tool, right? The familiar axes there. You could click and rotate it around like that. Again, most people prefer to remember the hotkey, which is R to rotate, right? So it's now just freehand rotating on my cursor. Remember the axes, as I mentioned before, can be used for any mode. So the X axis will rotate it back and forth. The Y axis, tilt it, or Z, there we go, to turn it towards the camera. Just a little bit, right? And there you go, F12. And we've done it. Let's save it. Let's upload it to ArtStation and then just wait for the recruiters, essentially. All right, let's start a new scene so that we can get ready for part 2, where we're going to actually start building our donut and learning some of the more core features of Blender. So,
well, I'll be. So this was make the monkey. Behold the monkey in all his chimpanzee-ness. Alrighty. So we'll go with new. General. No, don't save. Goodbye, little monkey. I will always remember the time we spent together. Promise myself I wouldn't cry. Okay, so basic modeling.
now we know how Blender functions. Let's start building that donut. So as before, let's, well, first of all, just to repeat, make sure you are working with a new scene. Completely new scene, don't want any remaining monkey heads lying around. Let's begin fresh slate, and let's delete our default cube just with the delete key, and let's replace it with a new object. You might remember the hotkey for that is Shift A. And as I mentioned before, you usually want what is underneath mesh because these are your primitives. So we want to start with something that most resembles what it is we're building. You know, if it was a house, you might start with a cube. If it was a vase, you might start with a cylinder. In our case, we want the donut-shaped one, although mathematicians call it a torus for some reason. Torus. So let's add that. Now, if I zoom in by scroll...
Wait, I'm sorry. A torus sounds more like I would be making a bull. Why would I be making a bull? That's a loaded bull. All right, pardon me. Still working. Oh, hello, Evangelion 007. Ah, joke's on Lord Zed. I don't have rare Pokemon cards. Mostly because, well, Pokemon scare me. I've read about what they do.
Scrolling up, we can see we have something resembling a donut. Looks like a pretty weak looking donut, you know, very flimsy. Looks like the donut before it's cooked when they just drop it into the vat and it's just this little wispy thing.
Hello, wispy
so
thing.
Immediately after you do some actions in Blender, you have options to change it. And the options are hidden down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You see a little box, and if you click that box.
Okay, add torus. Major segments. Jeez. Location, rotation. Ooh, let's change the radius. No? I want to thicken it. Yeah, minor radius. Gonna make a big old donut. Maybe fewer segments? I get it. What happens if I make it just 10 segments? Ugh. So fewer segments, but what would make it more round? Well, I guess that I should actually keep playing the tutorial to learn that, shouldn't I?
You see options, and look, we can change the dimensions of our...
I'm sorry. You all can't see what I see because I put this in the most inconvenient spot. Here in the lower left, there's my control. So, man, where can I put this here? I'm gonna move our tutorial to the upper right. Whoa! I said I'm gonna move our tutorial to the upper right because that seems to be the least conspicuous spot. We'll see. Now you're right, Guy T. We could also make a ring from Sonic. But let's just keep going, see what we can learn here.
Torus. Now, something to note is that these options in Blender only appear immediately after you have done that action. If you do another action, like say deselect your torus by mistake, it's gone, right? Because Blender has assumed you have moved on. You've accepted the state of your donut, and this is the one you want.
Well, you know what they say when you assume. You make an ass out of you and me. Stupid Blender.
Right? Now, if you haven't done anything drastic or changed this object in some severe way, you can temporarily bring it back by hitting F9. I never actually remember that hotkey. I just remember that immediately after I have added an object, if I want to tweak it, now's my chance before I move on to something else. Okay. So we could change, the size of it here. We can also...
Well, hang on. I'm gonna tempt fate here. Ah! I've lost it! Oh, Sid's alive! What am I gonna do? And how is this F9 gonna work on my computer? Because, well, a Mac keyboard isn't always forgiving. Yeah, it's not,
change the resolution. I'll use the term resolution loosely.
Okay, hitting that button actually started playing. That's weird. So let's see, what happens if I press Shift F9? Nothing. Command F9. Nothing. Alt. Control. Wow. You're being really mean, computer. Yes, Nathan Duazo, I am actually learning Blender. So I'm watching tutorial while making, the goal is to make a donut. Shade by smooth, convert to set origin, mirror, slap parent, move to collection, delete. No. See, this is what I'm talking about when there's confusion about how do I bring back something, because the F buttons, I guess that's more of a Windows thing, not necessarily a Mac. Let's see here. About Blender? Nope. Edit. Preferences. Lights, animation, add-ons, navigation, key map. Name, key binding. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so let me go back on what he said.
Change, the size of it here. We can also change the resolution. I'll use the term resolution loosely. I've added an object if I want to tweak it. Now's my chance before I move on to something else. Okay, so we could change, the size of it here. We can also change the resolution. I'll use the term resolution loosely, to make it 9. I never actually remember the object in some severe way. You can temporarily bring it back by hitting F9.
But I can't hit F9 because my computer doesn't like doing that. Oh, wait. I'm being silly. I forget about the function button. I said the function button. Oh, you bastard. It's not doing anything. Well, now, you're just being mean, aren't you? Aren't you now? This is important because I'm sure I'm going to forget. But for the moment, since I really didn't make any progress, let's just add another one. Taurus. Okay. And I'm thickening it up by clicking on the minor radius. And he said the resolution. So where's this resolution he's clicking on?
I never actually remember that hotkey. I just remember that immediately after I have added an object, if I want to tweak it, now's my chance before I move on to something else. Okay, so we could change, the size of it here. We can also change the resolution. I'll use the term resolution loosely, to make it higher or lower fidelity. And a mistake that a lot of beginners make, and I say this because this was the exact mistake I made way back in 2003 when I started learning Blender, is they go, well, I need a realistic looking donut, so I guess I need to go really high resolution. I remember my first project, one of my first projects was for a high school film project, and I wanted to have a close-up of a face. Didn't realize faces were going to be difficult, but I went really high poly, and then it was just an absolute nightmare to work with. So the reason you don't want this is that, for starters, things that are high poly are very slow to render, and they're very hard to work with if you want to tweak the shape of it. But also, as you learn and you grow with 3D, you'll discover that it is a lot easier to add resolution to something later on, but it is very difficult to take it away if you've already built it into it and you don't need it. So, long way to say, what we actually want is to have as few polys, these are called polys, as you can get away with. So I'm going to go with 32 major and 12 minor. And don't worry that it looks all jagged, because we will fix that in a moment. Now, the major and minor, this is really up to you, but I find that something that looks kind of chunky, like a fat donut, just looks really delicious. So I'm going with something around about this size. Okay. And once I'm happy with this, once I'm ready to click off, I click off, the options are gone, and this is it. This is the donut that I am now working with. So how do we make this look higher resolution, less jagged? Well, one way is to use smooth shading. So if you right click with your object selected, go to Shade Smooth.
Okay.
And look at that. This is immediately better.
Oh, check out its donutty majesty. Look it and beholdeth. Looks like the size of a large lad donut at Universal Orlando. Well, Concert Cruiser, also welcome. Yeah. I mean, that is kind of what a donut is. It features some lard. Womp womp. So, good to have you here. Now, Evangelion, don't give me spoilers on The Boys. I haven't even started to see it yet. So, forgive me, I won't read your comment aloud because I don't want to give spoilers. Also, over on Twitch, hello, JT Wooski Fang. Good to have you here. So, okay, so that makes it softer.
Without getting too technical, this is kind of a fakery. It's sort of like the shader is telling the renderer that this is a really high poly dense mesh when it really isn't. It's just basically kind of like averaging out.
You made a liar out of me. Applejack could never use this program.
Faces, and anyway, it's very technical, but basically means it's not going to add anything to your render time, but it's going to look smoother. And so this is generally what you want for something that is smooth and organic looking, like we want. If you were rendering like architectural or like hard surfaces, like later on we're going to put this on a counter, then the object would obviously want to be flat. But in our case, we're just going to use Shade Smooth. But you might notice that looking at this, especially if you go side on, that you've got this sort of jagged shape around here, right? So the silhouette is really breaking that illusion that this is a high poly or a smooth looking donut. But thankfully, rather than adding all of that complex density into the mesh itself and then making it hard to remove later on, there is another way through modifiers. So if we go over here to our properties, right, this very confusing, lots of option looking properties, click on the wrench, and this is the section called modifiers. And this is one of those.
Okay, usually if I use a wrench to modify something, it's taking it apart or I'm hitting it really hard. Just saying.
Object dependent things. So if you've got your camera selected, you won't see it. So it's only when you've got actual meshes that you might see this modifier here. So it's much easier to explain if we just add one. So up here, add modifier, and you got a range of options here that can do a whole number of things. The one that we're looking for is underneath generate, and it is called subdivision surface. And it is a really common modifier that you use all the time. In fact, it's so common, it's actually, you can just immediately add it to any object just by hitting Control 1. But don't do that because we've already got it. So
I knew it. I knew he was working on Windows. I will have to look up how to get back object options because, well, what if I suddenly want a thinner donut? Mirror set nap. I appreciate that folks warned me to save, but right now I haven't made a whole lot of progress. I could recreate this in like 3 minutes from what we've already learned.
There. Now, some of you might have just discovered that your donut has disappeared. If that is the case, you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and then underneath Viewport, where it's got Subdivision at the very bottom, Disable GPU Subdivision. That will then make the subdivision perform on your CPU instead of your GPU, which is maybe non-existent or not performing whatever. But disable that and it should appear. But if it's already working for you, don't disable it. Keep it going because GPU will be faster. So what exactly is this doing? Well, it's a lot easier to explain if we look at the shade flat mode, because we're not being tricked by the smooth shading there. If I set this levels viewport to 0, this is our original mesh. This is before we add the subsurface, essentially. When we increase this, you can see that it is adding resolution to our mesh. And the more I increase this viewport levels here, the finer and finer that detail becomes. So to explain it, because this is such a very, very common modifier, it's kind of important to understand how it's working. You can see that this is these squares here, these are called faces, by the way. And for each one of these faces here, as I add a level, you can see it's becoming 4 faces, right?
4 faces. Ooh, Transformers fans, 5 faces of donuts. 5 faces of evils. I appreciate the reminder, Trinary, but not just yet. I need to make something
right. And then now if I zoomed in on this one face here, if I do another level, that's now become 4 faces. And then if I zoom in again, it's now become 4 faces. So it's exponentially adding detail. And you might also know that it is smoothing it out as well. Like this jagged edge that we've got here, you can see now becomes smoother. So to quickly visualize that, if I just draw it, like imagine you've got like a 90-degree corner, right? Like this. If you add a subsurf modifier, what it's going to do is it's going to add a point here, right? Enough. And we're going to...
Forgive me, Guru, you are wise, but I don't want to simply replay your entire tutorial when I could be making headway. I trust your wisdom.
Be adding more to the scene later on, so we don't want to make it too... Okay, so we have a perfect donut, and that's the problem. It's too perfect.
Gasp.
You could spend decades trying to develop a machine in the real world that made a donut this perfect, and you never would. This is so mathematically precise that the eye will always see this as looking fake. So that's actually a problem you learn pretty quickly in 3D, that things that are too perfect just look fake. So you have to spend time making things look misshapen and adding variation there like you see in the real world, because your eye expects to see it. So how do we do that? How do we make this donut look a little more lumpy and interesting? I do that by changing the mesh itself. So this mode that we are in right now, where we can click on different objects, is called object mode. And I know that because in the top left-hand corner, you can see we are in object mode. But if I click the drop down, you can see I get a number of other options here. And these options, again, will change depending on the object you've got selected. If I've got a lamp, my little light there selected, you can see I've only got object mode. My camera, I've only got object mode. But a mesh will give you extra options here. So let's enter into edit mode. Ooh. Right, now you can see our mesh, our object.
I won't go ooh, because that would be sarcasm. Sarcasm, the last refuge of a soul upon which has been trespassed too often. I think that's the quote. Perfect. Yes, I appreciate Cage Black's cat impression. Perfect.
Object has become something that looks weird. It's got a bunch of little points on it with lines and very technical. Well, that's because this is actually what the mesh is made up of. These little points here, which you can click on just by selecting, are called your vertices. The singular term is called vertex. I never say that. I like to just call all of them vertices, regardless of whether it's 1 or 2, just because you always get some comments that go, actually, it's called vertex if it is singular. Anyway, so these are called your vertices, and if you have 2 of them joined by a line, that is called an edge, and if you have 4 of them forming a face, then it's called a face. So with these, I can quickly change the shape of my object by using the same hotkeys as before, and if I want to move this, then I would simply tap G, right? And you can see it's now attached to my cursor, and then if I want to confirm its movement, I just do a single left click, and there it is. Now if I go back into object mode like that, you can see that my mesh has changed. Okay, and by the way,
now first off, I kind of feel bad. It may not be realistic, but I like how wonderfully smooth and round this is. But at the same time, I understand what he means. The goal is realism, not fakeism.
Hotkey for jumping in and out of object and edit mode is just tab. Okay, so you can see it's just toggling between those two modes because it's so common that you want to just quickly change things that it's just easily accessible by that. Now, this is okay, right? But you can see it's got like some artifacting. It's not the greatest lump, right? So how do we make it look a little more natural? Well, I mean, you could, you move one, drag it out, okay, click, and then I move, the next one next to it, right? I'll move that out, and then I'll move this one out a little bit, and then I move this one out. And it's like, okay, well now I've got the thing, but it took me like 5 actions. Ridiculous, right? No one wants to do that. No one's got time for that. Thankfully, there is a tool in Blender just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar. So if you enable that, now if I hit G and I move it out, you will see I get a little ring.
Okay, slow down, amigo. Where did you click to get that proportional editing?
Now, if I hit G and I move it out, proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar.
Okay. Okay, don't be scaring me like that. Proportional editing is now active. So Swift is the guru.
So if you enable that, now if I hit G and I move it out, you will see I get a little ring around my cursor there, and that is now changing the mesh around it. Now, a lot of people in my previous tutorials were like, I don't see what's going on. You have to have something selected first, and then when you hit G, you will see that.
So I feel immature doing this, but yeah, get jiggy with it. Biggie, biggie. Wah, 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 wah. Oh? So maybe we'll move this one down just a little. Come around here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I wonder if there's a way just to select a face. Whoop. How about up here? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I gotta be careful here. 1, 2, 3, 4. G and up. So as you guys might be able to tell, I am very easily entertained. And I apologize for nothing. Let's take a moment just to check in the comments, like Trinary Quintesson Donut. Yeah. Evangelion would like to know about the upcoming Power Rangers beat 'em up game, Rita's Revenge. I mean, beat 'em up games are fun in a group. Kind of like how arcade games, which started to beat 'em up, were, I think, more fun if you had other people to play with, so you had an actual team. I don't do a lot of beat 'em ups, but recently I did play Shredder's Revenge with my friend Crystalage Bloodborne, and we went through pretty much the whole game, hoping I can get my other friends to join in as well, because I bought them all the game for Christmas. Welcome, Cherry Fluff Belly. Cherry Fluff Belly also had a comment. I did get a dentist visit after a good donut this month, only to get a filling. Welcome, Master Code. Good to have you here. And then there's Endless Ocean, a scuba diving simulator, which, man, I've never scuba dived, so I can only imagine what that's like. Wait, isn't that the one where No, that's a different game where Godzilla makes an appearance if you're deep sea fishing. Anywho. Adam Leisman says, imagine a tactical game where you play a group of cats taking on an evil organization by knocking things over to foil their plans and try not to get caught. Well, there's your problem, Adam. A cat can get caught. They'll just think it's so precious. I mean, I'm pretty sure Blofeld was like, oh, my kitty. You knocked over my plans for world domination, but I love you still. Okay, so I've created a rather lumpy donut.
That little circle of influence. Okay, now this circle of influence, if I scroll up, you can see it's shrinking its circle of influence. And if I scroll down, it is expanding its influence. So it's only going to affect what is in that ring there, okay? If you are on, if you don't have a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can also change the influence by using page up and page down.
Excuse me.
And if you don't have page up or page down because you're on a Mac keyboard, then what you would have to do is go to key map and then change your page up and page down to something else just so that you could get around that. But guys.
All right, let me just check something real quick. Search, what would it be? Object. Property editor. Huh. Oh, well, too late now. I need to find a way to edit the keyboard to get back that object editor. We'll figure that out.
You got to get a mouse. Get a mouse with a scroll wheel. I think they're, 50 cents or just in the nearest landfill somewhere. Get a mouse because it's going to make your life in 3D a lot easier. Okay, so with this, I can now make quick work of lumpy shapes, okay? So I just drag that out. Okay, I've got a little lumpy shape there. Maybe I go down here and I pull this up just by hitting G, moving it up. Okay, so already this is looking a little more natural, right?
My lumps,
because even
lumps.
If we were
my lovely donut lumps. Uh-huh. Okay, at this point, I'm not going to worry too much. Mostly, it's awkward enough at the top.
Making a stylized world for a Pixar movie or something like that, you can't have just a spherical looking donut. Sorry, round looking circular donut because your eye will see it as fake. So very quickly, I'm able to add a little bit of variation to the donut. Just all around it, just a little bit over here. And you can see that I am just changing my circle of influence depending on what size of a lump I want to make. So I just want to make like a little bit that sticks out. I can make a small circle just by scrolling up like that. And you just want to do that until you get something that looks sitting in the little vat thing, right? They're only like half submerged, so then they have to be flipped. But it means that the bit that's nearest to the surface is getting less heat. So essentially what I'm saying is the bit that's around the donut, the circumference of it is usually a little bit flatter. So donuts aren't like perfectly round all the way around. They're usually a little bit flatter. So what I want to do is I want to select these vertices along here and then I want to shrink them. Now I could go around one by one like this, which is actually what I used to do when I was learning Blender pre-YouTube days and there was no tutorials. What I would do this if I wanted to select this. Silly, because there's a function, a tool for that, and it is edge select. So if you hold down Alt on your keyboard and then do a single left click on not the points, but on the edge, right, this little line here, you can see it's selected all the way around. So it's anything that's connected along that line is now selected.
Well, shut my mouth. I was doing it the hard way. What have I done? I don't know if you all can see what is happening, but I hit Alt and actually I hit Option and I lost everything. I can't even see the streams now. Now you see my picturesque landscape. What madness. What treachery. There we go. I got it back. But that was scary. I was very scared for a moment there. I am full of the fear. But I'm okay now. I'm okay. JT Wusky fan wants to know, do I know/watch the YouTuber Scott Falco? Can't see that I do. So I'm not sure what Scott Falco's up to. All right. Well. You're right, Trinary. Now is the time to save. So I will save this in downloads for the time being. There is no... Blender would like to allow. New operating system. Donut. Boop. Boop. Okay. So what am I going to do with this newly selected edge?
So if I want to shrink this, right? What would I do? Well, I mean, yeah, you could like move it around, right? We want to shrink it. We want to change the scale of it. So we would use the hotkey S for scale. So S, and I'm going to scale that in. And I actually don't want proportional editing. So I'm going to turn that off and now scale in and just make it a little bit flatter. And there you go. See, it just feels a little bit more natural, doesn't it? It looks a little bit closer to what a donut looks like. And by the way, don't worry if yours doesn't look exactly like this, like your lump is a little bit off.
Oh, I did it again. Okay, there we go. So, he said use the scale. Rotate, move, cursor, scale. There it is. I didn't get that. Oh. Ooh, this is how you make the Trade Federation ships. Wow, actually that does look kind of cool. It does look like you could make a spaceship out of a donut. Play with that idea down the road, maybe. Maybe not that much. Let's make it subtle. I know I don't usually do subtle, but, well, there's a time and a place for everything, right? Okay.
Like, some people get a little bit too precious with the tutorial. Like, I gotta match exactly everything I do. Like, I'm just working on the fly as well. So just make what you think looks good. Maybe you think this is not misshapen enough and you want to add more, go for it, because it might actually turn out better than what mine is. Now, before we move to the next part, how to save. Blender, very, very easy. You just go save as. You might not get a reply.
Okay, apparently there's a he's advertising that there's a Discord service. Look, I'm enjoying these tutorials, so I'm not going to be, I don't mean to diss, but I'm not going to advertise someone else's Discord. Let's see, we move on to the next tutorial, the icing.
Did you guys know that Blender 4.0 had a change that makes it more realistic by default? Or that there's a new technology that is going to expand the uses for 3D exponentially? Well, you would if you were on my free, and now we're going to make that.
Again, I'm just not, again, this is the Blender Guru Beginning Blender 4.0 tutorial for part 3. I'm on Blender, what version of Blender am I on? Yep, version 4.1.1. So pretty up to date. That means you must have, oh well, it's been version 4 for a while. This is half a year. This video tutorial is half a year old. A layer cake. Well, Elizabeth Snowbell, let's see what I can do to make it more donutty after this next part of the tutorial.
At icing, which looks complex but is actually fairly simple. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to add an object, you go Shift A, right? And then you start with something that resembles what you're trying to create. But we already have something that resembles the exact shape we want to create. It's the donut, because we want the icing around the donut. So let's just reuse this information. So we can do that by duplicating the object. And if you don't know the hotkey for it, you could just go Object, and then you'd find it here where it says Shift D. So Shift D.
Okay, that's actually the same as After Effects. Let's see here. Object. Duplicate. Whoop, don't.
Now, when you hit that, you are in a placement state, essentially. Like it's duplicated and it's now saying, where do you want to place it? Now, in our case, and actually often, you don't actually want to change its placement. You want to duplicate it exactly where it was. So you can cancel the movement by hitting Escape or right-clicking. Now, when you do that, it looks like it's canceled the duplication, but you can see in your outliner, it has duplicated it. You've got two objects, but it's just in the exact same place, which is what we want. So first things first, we need to name them, or else we could get very confused very easily. So you can name an object by...
Dang it, dang it, dang it. Now I've got to move his window. Whoop. That is my... That's not my Streamlabs. I'm moving the window back over here because you guys need to see the Taurus over there. See, this is all flyby. Name it Homer. Okay, so the donut Prime, as I shall name it. Is it just double click on the name? Homer. Donut 2, we shall name Icing. Right now, Homer is on top of the icing, but let's move Homer below. Can I not move Homer below? Well, we'll figure this out. They're concurrent at the moment.
Just double clicking it in the outliner and then just typing in the object. The other way you can name something, I'll just show you the second way. If you select the Taurus 0.001, that's your icing object. If you're in the 3D view, where your cursor, is over the 3D viewport, if you hit F2, that's another very quick way that you can name something without having to go up to the outliner to find your object. So with our icing object selected, let's go into edit mode by hitting Tab. So we want the icing on the top, which means this bottom half of our mesh here is redundant. Don't need it. So we want to delete it. So if we just dragged over the bottom here, you can see it looks like we've selected the bottom half of our donut, but if you were to move around, you would see, oh, we haven't actually. It's only selected, annoyingly, what is facing the camera. Where there's a mesh, it's not gone through the mesh. A lot of users find this annoying. I agree. Sometimes it seems like that would be the more default one that would make more sense, but anyway, don't want to argue. So if you want to select through a mesh, you can go up to here in your top navigation, toggle X-ray. If you turn that on, it's going to enable you to see through the mesh. Whoa. And now when I drag over it, you can see that I have selected all through the mesh as I move around it. By the way, you might find it like when you're in this state, it's kind of hard to select. Like it's easy to kind of accidentally select what is above it. And depending on what you've got at your end, that might have happened already. So another way to easily just look directly on the side on of your donut is to just click one of these like in your gizmo here, instead of just dragging around, just do a single click on either the green one or the red one, the X or the Y. And now we're in that state. You can see it's flattened flattened it, so it's put you in orthographic mode, which actually you can toggle to at any time, just over there, which just makes it easier to just do a single, all the way through the mesh, select. All right. Okay. All right. So we want to delete that. So just hit the delete key. You get an extra option here of what do you want to delete: edges, faces. You want the vertices. That's everything. And now we have, if we go back to object mode, and then let's turn off toggle X-ray as well. And you can see it's working. We got half the donut on top of itself. But as you move around, you can see you got some flickering. Now, this flickering happens, and it's actually a very common, it's actually a good warning sign to you as an artist, because it means you've got faces on top of faces, and the 3D software doesn't know which face it wants to render, right? So it's like sometimes saying it's the front face, no, the back face, the front face, and there's no understanding. Sometimes you can actually spot it in TV shows and like VFX or like low budget stuff. You can see something flickering in the background, and I'm like, ooh, there it is, Z fighting. That's what it's called, Z fighting. Or Z.
Wait. Z, that sounds like an anime. That sounds perfect. Z fighting, the next Dragon Ball sequel. Or better yet, South Park, Z fighting, let's fighting love redux. Hey, let's go kick ass.
Dead fighting, if you're not American. So what we want to do is we want to give thickness to our icing. So we can do that with a solidify modifier. So adding another modifier, make sure you've got your icing selected, not your donut. And then here where you've got add modifier, we're going to go generate solidify. Okay. Now it's made it worse. It's actually added a thickness to our mesh there, but it's actually done it the wrong way. So it's with the normals. Yeah, what is it? It's trying to put the extra bit inside the donut. So we can change that by just changing the offset here in the solidifier settings. Just drag that all the way to 1. Some of you might have actually found that it was correct before, just depending on which way your normals were. If that's the case, keep it at -1, but everyone else, keep it at 1. We just want to make sure it's actually...
Okay, I'm going to say right now, that's too thick. I made that too... That's like... Would you like some donut with that icing? Nice. Okay.
Outside. Okay. I also, let's just increase the thickness a little bit too. Let's go, 0.025. That looks pretty good. And great. We've got what looks like a yarmulke on our donut. A perfectly straight edge little hat for our donut. So let's make this look more like icing. So the edge is wavy all the way around. So to do this is where we get into the fancy, finger magic, because you're typing.
Okay, let me see here. Yes, if you'll please pardon me. There we go. I feel like when talking about finger magic, that sound effect is appropriate. Alrighty. Let's keep on rolling here.
Lots of keys. Anyway, go into edit mode, and we can see straight away that we can't see the mesh, and that's because the solidify modifier is obstructing our view. So these little boxes here, as I mentioned before, like this is to hide it from viewport, but if you want to just hide it from your edit mode, which is the state that we are in right now, the box next to it is the one that you uncheck, which means in object mode, when you're tabbed in object mode, you can still see it, but edit mode, it's it's temporarily hidden for you. So if I was to select one of these points here and move it down, you can see that it's working, but it would be, again, a lot of effort to go round and round and do these one by one. So we want to use that old familiar proportional fall-off tool again. So proportional editing on, and now as I move it down, let's just lower the slider way down here, and then let's pull this down. Okay, now we'll find issues. If we move to the side here, we can see the first issue we've discovered is that this is...
Okay, well, he's finding issues. Okay, so like right there. According to him, yep. It's looking a little...
separating from our mesh here. And that's not what icing does. When it dribbles down, it follows the shape of the donut all the way down. So what we want to do is snap, undo it a number of times, snap the vertices to our donut underneath it. Right. Okay. So for that, we need to turn on snapping up here.
Oh, snap.
Okay, now there are a number of ways to snap in Blender. The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor. Not helpful. But we want to snap it to the face. And now with face snap.
Okay, hang on. Ah, I muted it.
Is snap. We can see, let's just look here, that the bottom bit, floor, not helpful, but we want to snap it to the face.
Okay, well, he dropped down. Okay. Snap to face. Okay. The face being 4 vertice points around. Oh, Enderpup, you're feeling tired? Good to have a rest then. Have a wonderful evening. We'll catch you next time.
And now with face snapping enabled, if we move this down, we can see, let's just look here, that the bottom bit is snapping to the face. But as you might have seen, the top bits, the rest of essentially what is inside of our circle of influence with this proportional editing, that's not being affected. Only the little point that we had selected was affected. So that's not what we want either. Normally that would be enough, but in this particular case, we want to also snap individual elements too. And let's go face project. Now, when we pull this down, you should see that these are also no longer clipping through the donut. But still, we have issues. Why is that? Well, it is actually working correctly. We can see these are not going through the mesh. So why does it look like it is? The reason for that is that there's actually just not enough information here. So if we go side on, you can see, right, like we've got this point here, and then we've got another point down here, okay. And then we've got this long stretch.
Apologies, but I don't like being yanked around. I'm not going to do something just to be told undo it.
In between, right? So that means that this part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes... that goes around like that is just not, there's nothing to snap it to, essentially. So what we need to do to fix this is just add more geometry. So these little vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier. Because although it is...
All right, there's a subdivision surface modifier. Subdivision surface. Nope, I don't see that happening. Let's see. I'm jumping ahead. Let's see what he says.
Is a modifier. You can apply the modifier. And the modifier currently is adding geometry, so let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply.
Oh, okay.
Now, if we, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being...
Apply modifier and remove from the modifier operation is not allowed from edit mode. Oh, okay. So if I go object mode, will you let me? Okay, thank you. Now back to edit mode. Whoa! Check this out. It's almost like getting seeds on your, well, a bagel. Okay.
Displayed. But in edit mode, you should now see exponentially more faces, because here, where there was one face before, you can see there's now a lot more, right? 4x. Okay, 4x. Okay. So Now, if we pull down, we should see it is snapping. And if we go into this mode, you can see that it's now conforming to the mesh in a much more...
Yeah, holy crud. Let's see if I have even a tenth of that success. Oh, well, wait, I should get out of edit mode. You know, in my case, I think I overdid it. Okay. Okay. Now let's try applying it again. Apply. Okay, yeah, that's not quite so crazy. It's still way more than I had, but yeah. Okay, G. Okay, yeah, that's looking okay. Not great, but okay.
Snug way, because there's information there for it to use. Now, this shading artifact here that we can see, this don't worry about that. We'll fix that in just a moment. Okay. But I need to show, because I've shown you like 4 things that we need to enable for this to work. I got to show you one more, because if I pull down and if I scroll up, you'll see something. Okay, if I was to click, we get this horrible problem here, and I've done this tutorial on enough, and enough people have hit this issue that I need to call it out specifically, because it seems to be a big point that a lot of people just don't know where to go from. What's happened is if we use a what's it called, the circle of influence for our proportional editing, if that is so high, it's actually high enough to reach the mesh on the other side of the donut. And then because we've got snapping, it's now projecting that, snapping it to the front, which is creating this like something that's a nightmare to fix. I mean, in fact, it's easier just to start from scratch than to try to fix that. So if we want, sorry, there's a lot of noise. To fix this, we need to hide the part of the mesh that we don't want to be influenced by our proportional tool, right? So to do that, there is an easy way to do it. We can actually do it very precisely. So if with this middle bit of our donut here, if I just hold down Alt and then do a left click, as I mentioned before, that selects the ring, okay? And we could do that all the way up, but actually there's a little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use Control plus.
Okay, that sounds like fun. Let's give it a go. Well, there we go. For some reason, it just makes all my other windows disappear first. And all right, if it's Control on a Mac, it's Command on. Control on a window, it's Command on a Mac. Command plus. No? No? It's not really doing much of anything for me at the moment. It's zooming in. Okay. Well, now I just feel... I feel cheated again. I feel cheated. Select more. Number pad plus. Oh, you're doing this on my number pad, huh? Tricky devils. There we go. Frickin' number pad. How many people have a number pad on their keyboards? Oh, Evangelion's got to call it a night. We will see you next week. So let's keep going.
Control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So Control plus will just like select the next vertice along a chain, roughly speaking. And you can see we can very quickly select all the parts of the mesh that we don't need, right? Very cool. By the way, if Control plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something else, select more, less. You can also do it here. Anyways, to hide this part of the mesh, it's H for hide. So when you're in this state, it looks as though it's been deleted. It's very, sometimes you don't know where part of your mesh and then you forgot that you've got hide turned on. If parts of your mesh are hidden and you want to bring it back, it's Alt H. So H to hide and then Alt H to bring it back. Or if you can't remember it for whatever reason, you can also find it. Okay, it's underneath mesh. There we go. Mesh. Reveal hidden or hide selected. Okay, so that's the other way. But you can get my keyboard shortcut. It's in the link. It's free. Just use that and then you won't forget a lot of these handy shortcuts. All right, so now finally, after all that, after 4 different ways and problems to explain, we can now take part of this mesh and drag it down and it will work correctly. Haha. So now we get to now finally be an artist and go like, what sort of, edge or what sort of icing do I want to make this look like? So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm hitting G to pull it down, and then I'm just single middle click, and then because my cursor is closest to the Z-axis, it's now snapping it to the Z-axis. So that's why I mentioned before that it's really handy. You don't have to think of the letter and type it in. You just go in the general direction you want to go, and then just tap the middle click of the, which is your scroll wheel, right? Middle click. It's such a weird button that you have to call it out. It's the scroll wheel button, because it's like no.
Now, already I have a slight problem. Part of my mesh, it's not hidden. It's still, as far as I can tell. Actually, I think I accidentally deleted some of these. Let's see what happens if I try to... Ah, there you are. All right. And let's... A selects all. Interesting. All right. Then let's just see what happens if I move just this guy. Well, that opens up possibilities. I'll take possibilities. So I can bring stuff back to the forefront just by clicking and doing even minor motions. There we go. Quick look. Oh, look at how donutty it's looking. Okay, yes, I agree with many people in the chat. I am actually starting to hanker a donut. This is clearly not good for my health or my calorie intake. Though funny enough, there were at Costco some old-fashioned donuts pre-packaged. I avoided temptation. So I guess I'll have to do something similar over here. You know, part of me thinks this would be a fun thing to teach at a convention, but at the same time, just look at how much time it's taken to get to making the icing, and I've only got like 15 minutes left in the stream. Maddie! Hello, Mad Munchkin! It's so good to see you! Well, you don't have much of a sweet tooth. I'm a little envious. I do. I am cursed with a sweet tooth. Donuts can be quite heartwarming, but bad for the tummy and the gut and the diet and all that stuff. But let's just keep going here. Still, I am very impressed with what this thing looks like. My first foray into 3D modeling. And it started with a monkey and then a donut. Maddie, you'll have to watch the earlier part of the stream to witness me lighting a monkey. I am not mature enough to have that discussion, as I've already stated. Okay. So I've gone around and so now, not bad. It's definitely following the face because I have it set to face project. I also had just saved. Yes, good. All right, speak to me, Yo Guru.
Other application seems to use it besides scrolling, but Blender is like, no, we're going to use it for like 90% of the operations is going to be middle click. But anyways, as you can see, I'm not paying particularly too much attention to it, but I'm just making a wavy looking shape around it. You might also want to make some bits that go the opposite direction, right? And then maybe pull, so you've got like big shapes as well as medium shapes and some small shapes, big, medium, small. It's the recipe for appealing design, big, medium, and small details. But I digress. By the way, I should mention, if you're stuck, don't feel bad, because there was certainly a lot of finickiness going on with this donut here, and we're definitely in the steep part of that curve at the moment. Do make use of my Discord if you are stuck. I created it literally so that people could get instantaneous help. I don't have any other benefit for it, so it's there so that you can find help. Link is in the description, and there's like donut help chat room where you can post screenshots of your problem and then people can help each other out. So do make use of that. Now, our shading issue here, this darkened edge, is actually going to fix itself by fixing another issue. So it's a two birds, one solution kind of problem. This 90-degree edge here for this icing, not ideal. Everybody knows that a real icing would create like a rounded edge there, right? So we can fix that just by adding another subsurf modifier. Because you might remember I mentioned, like, yes, if you've got 3 vertices, it'll create like another vertice here and another vertice here, but it'll also like round it out. It'll pull this one back, so you end up with a rounded corner. So right here in your modifier stack, we're going to go add modifier, generate subdivision surface. Now, the order of these does matter, okay? You want your solidifier at the top and the subdivision after it. So Blender works top to bottom, and it's important it's in this way because you want the extrusion to happen first, and then in order to round that edge, it has to happen as a secondary step. So solidify on top, subdivision underneath. Now, whilst we're here and we're looking at the close-up, nice little profile of this edge of this icing.
And one of the weird things is I can't get it to zoom in on what I want. Well, it's linked to the center. How can I zoom in on the edge like he's doing? Usually this is where there's like a hand tool or... Okay, there is a hand tool. It's right here in this little corner. Okay.
Another issue to call out, you can see it's got this this shape that goes around. Yes, so far so good. But then it goes up. And it's like, it would be better if it went around and then tucked in and touched the edge of it, because that would look more like real liquid would. So we can solve that by just changing one of the settings in the solidify modify. It's not one of those things that you would figure out or know where it is. It's just over time you learn where some of these settings are. But essentially here, the edge data. So we want to change the edge data to say that before you do the solidify step, add a crease on the inner part right here. If we increase this all the way to 1, it now creates a sharpened edge just on that inner part there. So the rest of it is a smoothed edge, but the middle one, there's a crease, so it's making a sharp edge there. And it just gives it just a little bit more realism. Just looks a little bit closer to what you would imagine real icing would do. Okay, now for the cool bit. All right, so if you look at reference of donuts, right?
Oh, brace yourselves. Now we're at the cool bit. I'm being snarky, but this is wonderfully helpful.
Right, yes, you've got these little wavy bits, but where the icing is really liquidy, it'll often break off from this wave here, and it'll create a trail that goes down underneath the donut, right? It just sort of drips all the way down. Whoops, bumped the microphone. So we can do that, but not the way we were doing it before. If we just took one of these points and then like dragged it all the way down like that, there wouldn't be enough information there, right? You can see you just get this like stretched look, and it doesn't look great, okay? So essentially we need to give it more information, and we couldn't just do it by like adding more and more subdivision surfaces. We need to actually like break this shape here and create a new shape that goes down. So we need to extrude. So if I select this vertice and then the one next to it by holding down Shift, I don't think I mentioned it, but yeah, if you want to select two things at once, it's Shift select. Anyways, so if we select two vertices like that, we want to extrude it downward by hitting E. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this? So I'm going to move it down to, yeah, like about there where I want the trail to stop, and I'm just going to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face that's completely separate to what we've got there currently. And what this means is if we go...
You see, Luke Skywalker, you need to go into the Death Star and put your torpedo right about here. There's an entire movie devoted to how we know this, and it's pretty ho-hum until you get to the space fight scene. Pardon me. But see, it is extruding. Oh, that's very nice.
To object mode, you can see it's not just like continuing this form here, it's pulled it down, right? Which is exactly what we want. And in fact, I want it to go even further than that. So I'm going to select those two vertices, and I'm going to pull it down again, and then I'll do it again. And the reason I've done this 1, 2, 3 is that this detail here is important so that it conforms to the shape of the donut. Because if there's not enough, you're going to have that clipping issue that I showed you earlier. So that's pretty good. And now we're going to do it again. Originally in my earlier versions of the donut, I only did like one of these, but then I noticed that in the render, the final render, it's often the most interesting part of the donut. So now I'm thinking, yeah, just do it all the way around the donut. Just add the bit that looks cool. Add more of that. So here, so wherever there's essentially like a big dip is what I'm looking for. Like where the liquid would sort of build up and then like the surface tension there would be just too much, and then it would break away. And it would go down underneath like that. And we'll do another one here, why not? Like that, and down, and down. And that's pretty good. Haha.
Oh, wait, no. That's
lovely. So...
No, not this one. This one didn't look so good. Let's see what I can do. Oh no, I don't want to delete the vertices. Let's see if I can make it G. No? How's that looking? No, not so great. What can I do? Actually, here's the thought. What if I... Better, but still... not quite there. Here's a thought. If I grab this here, whoop. There we go. Having to really pull it out there. But it's doing the job. There we go. Whoa. Not quite. We're not quite there. Woo! Oh, that doesn't look so good. Whoa. What happened up there? Let's see if I drag that down a little, will that reclaim anything? Let's also make sure I'm not hiding anything. Very curious. I will need to play with this a little bit more because, well, we're just about out of time. For the most part, I'm pleased with how this looks. A loss of some icing notwithstanding. It's mostly this thing that I'm confused by. Now you see, it's trying to warn me here. I wonder if I increase the thickness by 1. Nope, same thing. Okay, well, everyone, I will see what I can do to make this look better. And then next week, I guess we'll learn sprinkles. But in the meantime, let's save what we got, even if it's not looking so hot. Whoa, oh dear. Well, now, I wonder, I bet I know what happened. Let's just undo. Ah, it has limited undos. Good to know also. So things went a little kerflooey when I did the extrude. Especially on this side of the face. Well, I'll figure this out, or I'll delete and start over. Anything is good. Anyway, I hope I hope you all have had fun watching me learn this, and my thanks to the Blender Guru for producing such a excellent tutorial. I mean, really walking through the steps. Others promised you could do this in a few minutes, but that doesn't work. I want to learn Blender, not a shortcut. Ooh, and I also want to figure out what happened here.
Not sure I understand.
Hush, Siri. Well, now my phone's acting up. Anyway, everyone, I think I should call it a night before I offend all of my appliances and applications. So, until next time, I hope you have just a fun weekend, good times, enjoy the summer weather, wherever available, and I will talk with you all again. So, until then, be safe and be well. I'm Silver-Quill.